Welcome back, guys. We're now 26 episodes into the series, and I think it is about time that we start getting science over here. So the first and easiest place to start would be with red science, and what I'm ultimately planning on doing is putting my sciences in this upper right circle over here. We'll keep the upper left circle for production of intermediary products like fluid and other things like that we'll end up needing. But red science in particular should be really easy because that just takes copper and iron. Basically iron gear wheels, which I already have getting produced in some sort of like mass production with this little factory over here, but still it's something. And then we just need to figure out a way to bring it some copper, which I don't think will be too hard of a project. One thing I am thinking though that I'll have to do is end up adjusting my armory section by just a couple tiles up. And the reason I say that is because I've realized I've basically got plans to have my cars go in between the circles. So I have entrance and exits in this section over here between these two circles. I have planned for an entrance and exit between these two, but I'm definitely going to be needing an entrance and exit for these two circles going horizontally. So I'm planning on doing that by adding in another belt line over here. Instead of it going from left to right like this top one is doing, we'll have it go from right to left. It'll basically be how the right-hand circle gets over here to the left-hand side. And that way, my cars don't have to go to every circle. They can just alternate between the ones that are needed instead of having to travel literally everywhere. And hopefully that will decrease my density a little bit and improve my efficiency of the cars. But before we get to that though, I think that'll be an off-camera project, just moving those things over by a couple tiles like I mentioned. I should probably get to planning some sort of red science factory, and eventually I want to produce, you know, maybe 1,000 or more, of course, would be ideal science per minute if possible. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that with these base constraints that I have on myself. Basically, the constraints, of course, will be the fact that I'm doing car delivery, and just the throughput of cars might be an issue in the future. The second limiting factor will be just how much space I have available. So I think for now, I'm just desperate enough to get science literally up and running that I'm just going to aim for 1 science pack per second, which is, I think, a really realistic goal. To do that, though, I'm going to have to do a lot of planning, which means I'm going to be meeting you guys over in the test world. So here's what I'm thinking for starters. We're here in one of the creative map circles. Since the circle is already divided into quadrants and I have, I think it's 6 sciences, and that includes space science? 1, 2, 3. No, that does not include space science. So there's 7 sciences, including space science. I'm thinking I can at least fit, hopefully, 2 sciences into each quadrant. One of these quadrants will probably only fit 1 science, but maybe that will be for yellow science because it takes more components, or military science or something like that. So I think when it's all said and done is my point that this will look pretty filled in with all of the science allocated in the quadrants there. So at this point, I just have to play around with some designs. Again, I'm only trying for 1 pack a second so far. I'm okay with doing the calculations based off of either the upgraded machines or the mid-tier machines, because I do know eventually I'll upgrade, but I guess since that's what I have right now, I'll start with that. So let me grab those. And I need to make this as compact as possible because, again, I'm trying to fit a whole ton of factory in a little bit of space. So for red, I think we just need, wow, I guess, well, if I have iron gear wheels automated, these just literally have to be the machine. So 5 of these, gosh, that is super easy. Heck, I might be able to already upgrade and maybe double it. So since I have the space, let's double it here. So there's 10 there for red science. Red science should be well taken care of because I already have iron gear wheels automated, and the copper plate I'll just have to make sure I bring over here somehow. So next we need to worry about green science, and this one will take inserters and transport belts, which I do not have mass production of at this point, and that's not something that I plan on going in the car bus, so I do want to build it on site. So Starting with the transport belts, I guess. Let's see, this will just take gear wheels and iron plates. The inserters, on the other hand, takes gear wheels, iron plate, and electronic circuits. Those are all on the car bus. That shouldn't be a big deal. Let's get rid of that. This becomes the inserter machine. And I think I only need, let's see, well, I guess since I'm doubling it, do I need 2? I'm not actually sure. Let's start with 2. And then I'll check the calculator in just a minute here. And then, so those will go down, and then that's all I need. Crap, that doesn't really leave me enough room for an output in the middle though, does it? So I ended up looking up the Kirk-McDonald calculator, which is the calculator I've used in the past for calculating my science and production ratios and standards like that. So it actually corrected my math a little bit because it reminded me that the blue assembler, which is the one I'm using right now for testing purposes, only has a crafting speed of 0.75, so this does not produce quite 1 pack per second. So you end up needing a little bit more than that. So to do 2 packs per second for red science as an example, you end up needing 13.4 assemblers, or in my case, I'm going to end up rounding it to 14 just so I can make sure that I'm not underproducing. And then for green science, this will take an even 16 assemblers. So for the red and green science, I've come up with a couple little designs here. Red science, super easy because I already have iron gear wheels getting produced back in the factory in my main base there. So it will already just be requiring the assemblers to produce that and then inputs for the materials. And this is 14 assemblers, I think, or at least it should be because I was planning on running up like I mentioned. So if I want to, I could just cut this in half and do something like that. And then that way it's a little bit more compact in terms of length. It's not nearly as tall. But in terms of green science, I've come up with what I think is a pretty cool design here. It doesn't include the power, and I actually, even though I'm in my creative map, I forgot to actually enable the creative mod. So I'm gonna have to get back in and reload once the creative mod is back and active on this map. But theoretically, this should work because it takes 2 assemblers for production of the inserters, only 1 assembler for the belts. So I'm figuring we can have 2 inserters go producing the belts on either side. So basically it'll split the production, and then we'll have 1 inserter machine for each side. And then of course we have half of a row for the green science itself up here at the top and the other half here at the bottom. Very nice and symmetrical. And then we'll have the output go from basically the bottom and then back up to the top where the inputs are coming in. So imagine if the cars are traveling on the belt line here, we'll have the inputs of the iron and the iron gear wheels and stuff like that come from basically left to right. And we'll have the output, or the green science, feed back in towards the direction of the cars to go back into the cars for delivery. That is an option. Or option B is having labs maybe in the middle or something like that, doing maybe a cool circular lab configuration. But either way, we have some options. But I think this is pretty well red and green science covered. Now I'm going to go ahead and load the creative mod like I mentioned, and then we'll do some testing. Now to do some testing for red science, now that I have the creative mod actually enabled at this point, let's grab the active energy source. We'll plop it down here. And hopefully we should be seeing 120 per minute once this gets started. Alright, it has been working for a full 60 seconds, I'd imagine at least. So let's take a look at the graph. And let's take a look at the 1 minute interval. And here we go, right about 120 per minute. Again, this is most likely to produce more than 120 per minute because I ended up increasing my assemblers to 14 instead of 13.4 because I rounded up the assembler machine. So this is good. It will at the very least produce 120 per minute. So that is perfect for red science. Let's go ahead and do the same thing now with green science. So my outputs we need to worry about. So we'll have this one be iron. This one be gear wheels. Ooh, and then I do need green circuits, I forgot. So what I can do, I can just put green circuits maybe on the shared one of these lines. It doesn't even really matter, actually. There we go. And then we just have to hook this thing up into power as well. There we go. Oh, we're still missing power right there. Alright, so I have to wait for this guy to warm up as well, and then we'll be back in approximately a minute to see just how well it's performing. Alright, I think it's been well over a minute now, so moment of truth, let's take a look at the production statistics. And going to the 1 minute interval, we are just about 120 a minute. It fluctuates a little bit here and there, but I imagine if we were to look at the 10-minute graph over a 10-minute period, it would probably be right at about 120 per minute. So this works for me. So that is as much research as I need to do to make sure that this is a factory that I want to go with. It's a very compact and symmetrical and aesthetically pleasing design. I could probably clean up the power poles here a little bit, but this will work for red and green science. Now I have to get work designing something for military, blue, purple, and yellow. I'm not as much looking forward to those factories. Oh boy, now starting military science. This is where it's going to be getting a little bit more complicated because military science takes piercing rounds, grenades, and walls. And of course, piercing rounds also take the regular rounds. So there's just a lot of components that go into producing one little thing, it seems like. So I again reference my Kirk McDonald calculator. So I'm going to be using, if we're planning on doing 120 per minute science packs. Oh, and let's see, this does 2 military science packs each time. We're going to be using 4 assemblers for production of the piercing rounds, and we'll do 2 assemblers for production of the regular rounds. And that's with me rounding up. So like I said, I just want to make sure I'd rather overproduce than underproduce. So let's come up with a design for the piercing rounds, and then we'll go from there and find a way to kind of fit it all together. Okay, I'm thinking if we have this be regular ammo, this can be the piercing ammo. That's 4 to 2. It's just not very, like, convenient, though. Let's see. If we do something like this instead, it allows me to better kind of distribute my end products, which is something I enjoy. Instead of having like 4 separate lines that I have to join up, this is just easy. It's joined up already right there. So let's do this instead. Here's the regular ammo. This will be the piercing ammo. My inserters, something like that. And something like that. We can play around with this. This is just how I start with my planning phase. I think, how can I put certain assemblers in relation to other assemblers? So this is a good start for piercing ammo. So the next thing we need is grenades. There we go. So for grenades, we will need, because I'm rounding up, 11 assemblers for grenades. So let's get back there. Unfortunately, that is an odd number, which sucks because it is more difficult to keep that symmetrical when they're odd numbers. But this just takes coal and iron plate. That is not a big deal. We can potentially just have 2 lines worth. And we can maybe, just like we did actually with grain science, we can have one up here kind of in the middle. That's 8. 9, 10, and then we have 11 if we count the one up here in the middle. All right, that should be pretty well grenades taken care of, I think. The last thing we need, let me double check here, are the walls. As for walls, we're going to round up again by going with 2 assemblers for production of the walls, and then for the actual military science assemblers themselves, we'll round up again to 14. So now that I know my general ratios, the tricky part is just building it all into one cohesive factory, because as you guys know, I tend to like my factories to be pretty modular and compact. Part of it is because I don't always have the room to make them big, but secondly, I just think it's more aesthetically pleasing to have it very organized and neat as one cohesive unit. So let me start now with the military assemblers, and I know I need 14. So I'm going to do 7 to each side. Let me make sure I have an output here in the middle. And unlike my multiplayer Death World series with JD, I'm trying not to belt braid, at least at this point, just because it's just easier to keep track of where everything goes. And then because the recipe takes basically twice as many walls as it does either the piercing rounds or the grenades, I think I'm going to have 1 full lane to each row of military assemblers for walls, and then we'll have a separate lane for the piercing rounds and the grenades that we'll share. So what I mean by that is we'll have it look something like this maybe. And we can do, actually, let's do the same trick that we did with our low density structures that I really, really liked. So how did that work? If only I had it blueprinted. Let's see. Let's start there. Okay, there we go. I think that will cover it for one side. Then we just put in the filters and we kind of alternate. So I'll start with the walls, since the walls are going to be on their own lane. So we'll have those go there. We'll copy that to each one of these, but then just change the sides, if that makes sense. So we'll go like that and alternate, and then alternate again. Whoop, that didn't work out. There we go. Okay, so now we can start testing, I think. Or no, I should just kind of build it in, I think. So what we can do, let's copy this to the other side as well. And then we'll do an output in the middle for everything. Like so. Okay, everything's now powered, so let's finish now hooking in these components over here. So, let's see. Probably easiest to start, oh gosh, with the grenades. So I'm going to copy that. Let's actually place down there. What I could do, we'll have these here for walls, I think. So this will be the 2 wall machines. Have it go like that. Perfect. Okay, there we go. So that is fixed. Let's give that guy power and that guy power. I do need to worry about how these guys get their inputs though, so maybe we can have it be like that, which I know isn't 100% ideal, but we can add more inserters if needed. So we'll have this row be, whoops, stone brick. That'll be the output. These guys are the grenades. And then the last thing we need is the ammo, which is this little build up here. So this will take iron plate. that takes steel and copper. Crap, I forgot about the inputs for that. Let's move this over by a thing. We'll have red inserters for direct insertion. And then we'll have a line here for the steel and copper. So now that I have this generally set up, now I can start putting in the creative things for testing purposes. So where do those go? Okay, matter source. We'll do copper and steel. Copy that over here. This is the regular ammo like we keep talking about. And we can even do a trick like this to make it more compact. This will be the iron right there. And let me start giving this power so this will start getting tested, basically. And I may have to bring this up, it looks like a couple tiles. Or maybe not. Let's have this, we'll put that there, and we'll have that go underground. That will be fine. Scoot that down by 1 to make room for those guys. And that's perfect, really. Okay, so then that joins up. This will split off like that. And we'll do the same with the other side. Like that. Okay, so now we can put the matter void in, which is right there. That way we can measure it properly. All right, so I'm slowly beginning to turn some things on. Ammo up here is already working. It's already going through here and getting split up onto either side here. So that's ammo taken care of. Let's finish filling in now. This is going to be the coal and iron, which will have to go underground like that. I, again, may have to move this up by a tile just to make sure I have 2 full lanes worth of the coal and iron. Otherwise, this is basically only 1 full lane that's split in half, so that's not quite as ideal. But that's the whole point of testing, because then we'll know for sure. So this will be coal and iron. So the trick is just to see if it makes its way all the way to the end. Let's cut that off right there. Whoops. Like that. And I do have the matter void here at the end, so that way it's always kind of getting rid of the product so we can get a really good idea of just how much it's going through. We do have to hook up the output for the grenades here, so that goes... It needs to join up here with the ammo, so the best way for me to do that, actually... would be to do something like this, I think. Now I can put that splitter back in. Whoops! There we go. Alright, the last thing we're missing are the walls, which again we have outputs coming in through the top here. This will be stone brick, which is right there. And we'll have a full lane on each side, I think. Just like that. Alright, so this is fully running now. I like how this turned out. It can be probably cleaned up a little bit, possibly made a little bit more compact in some areas, but that's no longer the point that we're testing. We're testing now just to make sure that it's keeping up with the 2 packs per second or the 120 per minute. So let's let this warm up, and then we'll be back with some more production statistics. Well, it's been a couple of minutes later, and I've already looked at the production statistics, and I'm actually not quite producing 120 per minute. I'm really close, but it just doesn't quite get there for some reason. I haven't quite been running for a full 10 minutes now, so I'll be interested to see just what this rate looks like for a full 10-minute period. But for whatever reason, for the 1-minute interval, it just does not quite get to 120 per minute. I've double-checked my ratios. I've even thought about upgrading some of the inserters to the green stack inserters, but it really hasn't made too much of a difference. So I'm going to do some further testing on this just to see kind of where I could possibly improve the design. It's probably just the design that I came up with instead of the ratios, but I will double check this here in just a minute off camera. But I think this is actually where we're going to end the episode. We've done designs for 3 of the sciences, so I think for next episode we're going to finish science designs for blue, purple, and yellow science, and then hopefully by then we'll have enough time to actually start building it by the end of the next episode, but if not, that will be in episode 28. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know what you think about these designs, and I'll plan on seeing you guys next time.